Today I'm making bitter grapefruit and whiskey marmalade, which is really easy to do. I would usually use standard grapefruit, but today I'm going to be using Seville oranges. The process is exactly the same. You'll be weighing your grapefruit, so it doesn't really matter what variety it is. And Seville orange is a bitter orange, but it works perfectly for a bitter marmalade. You'll need to wash and scrub the peel of your fruit because we're going to be using the whole Seville orange. I cut it into quarters and then using a sharp knife just cut away the inside pith. That reveals the pips, making it easy to pop them out, and then I finally slice them. If you can't remove all the pips, don't stress, because as you cook the marmalade, you'll be seeing those pips rise to the surface and you can scoop them out as you go. That, after being weighed, 2 kilos worth, goes into a big pot and we cover that with 2 litres of cold water and we let that soak overnight. We'll be bringing our pot of Seville orange or grapefruit and water to the boil, and we'll want to boil that for about 50 to 60 minutes. And now I'm going to add in the sugar, and I'm looking at 2 kilos of white sugar. That's kind of the base. Now, due to my hubby's preference for bitter marmalade, I've upped the citrus quantity somewhat, and I'm reducing the sugar a little too. In goes the sugar, and we'll need to stir that just so the sugar doesn't catch at the bottom. We want that to dissolve, and we'll be putting that on the boil again, or a high simmer, for another hour. And you may well ask, how can so much sugar make a bitter marmalade? Well, we've got the Seville orange, which in its own right is a bitter orange and equates very much to a grapefruit. It's pretty much the same thing. So if you're unable to eat grapefruit due to any medications, think of Seville orange as the same. So we'll be stirring that, just making sure that no sugar catches at the bottom. Naturally, the fruit will sink as it reduces, so you just want to make sure that you can capture those bits of sticky citrus that might be catching at the bottom, because you don't want burnt bitter marmalade. While my marmalade is on the boil, I'm going to get my jars ready. So let's think about the sterilisation process. First, I'm putting cold water and jars in that cold water and bringing it up to the boil. I'll be then using the same pot to water bath them at the end of the process. You can use any pot for sterilising and or water bathing, but just make sure that it's tall enough so that the whole jar can be submerged. I've been using a catering pot for years and years and years. I've had this old beauty for a couple of decades, but I've finally bought myself a pressure canner. I'm not pressure canning this recipe, but the pot is very large and very deep and can hold plenty of jars. And so I'm not restricted by height. In previous videos you may have seen me use quite small jars, and that's because, again, think about the water level on top. It just was restrictive, but no, this is all good. So I've got my jars that are nice and clean. There's a special rack that sits at the bottom. It just means that the jars don't jiggle around because we don't want any breakage while they're bubbling away. In the past, I've used a cloth at the bottom, and it just helps secure the jars so they don't rattle around. So I've got my cold jars in cold water, and they're completely covered. And I'll be adding a dash of white vinegar, and it just helps with the decalcification of the jars and the pot itself, and it doesn't hurt with sterilisation too. And I will bring this to the boil for at least 10 minutes, and that will sterilise my jars. My marmalade has reduced nicely, and it's got this beautiful dark golden colour now. So in goes my half a cup to a cup of whiskey. we'll give that a good stir, and that only needs another 10 minutes. Most of that alcohol will burn off, and then we'll be ready to bottle. It's all systems go. I've got the fan on full blast, humming away. There's a lot of steam in the kitchen at the moment. So I'm doing the hot fill process. So hot jars, hot liquid into hot water after the lid's put on, obviously, and then I'll be water bathing them that way. So I need to use my trusty jar picker-upper. I'll empty the water back into the pot because that's going to be sitting there ready to go for the water bath. I'll be cleaning the top if there's any spillage with a cloth with a little bit of white vinegar, applying the lid, and then putting that back into the water bath. And then when all of my jars are done, I'll be cranking up the heat again and bringing that to a boil, and it'll boil for around 10 minutes. After which time I will turn off the heat. I'll let them just settle for about 10 minutes and then pull them out and put them on the bench, ready to cool down naturally. Bitter as, but beautiful as intended.